Let's just focus on to this now. International Relations Minister Lindiwe Sisulu has urged South African law enforcement agencies to investigate charges against a citizen accused of supporting an extreme jihadist group in northern Mozambique. Hanekom is accused of aiding the group, who is linked to the deaths of more than 100 people in the area. Hanekom and 2 Tanzanians were arrested earlier this week. Let's get you more details on this. I'm joined via Skype by Jasmine Opperman from the Terrorism Research and Analysis Consortium. A happy new year to you, Jasmine. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Morning, Dudu, and happy new year to you and to all your viewers.
We know what the situation is looking like in terms of terror on the continent when it comes to East Africa and the Sahel region, who are still battling very much with that. For context's sake, do we have something to worry about in Southern Africa?
I think we should be very careful in terms of Mozambique, in terms of just stating quite blankly that we are seeing a Islamist extremist group active there at this point. With the initial attacks in the Al-Sunnah group, yes, we had definite extremist influences coming from Tanzania. But since then, and since the government's intervention, we have seen Shabab cells. Now, these Shabab cells have no link to Al-Shabaab in Somalia. Let's make that clear. There is no organized structure behind them. There is no evidence of an extremist ideology driving them at this point in time. So to define the Shabab cells in the same context as Al-Sunnah as a total oversimplification of a far more complex issue, an issue which even the Mozambican government is struggling to define due to the brutality of the attacks.
What more do we know about this situation and where Mr. Hanekom is concerned?
First of all, let's start with the situation. The government is currently deploying and is intensifying its deployment in that area to gain some level of control. But even in their statements, they contradict themselves, because they will refer to organized crime and the next moment is an extremist activity taking place. You're sitting with a problem of soldiers being deployed, and already there are indications of human rights abuses taking place because of mass arrests. So stigmatization starts playing a role. You're sitting with a problem of soldiers not used to the culture of that specific environment. They don't even speak the language of the local communities. So there's a high level of mistrust. And I think we need to be clear on this. Now, let's get to Hanekom. He has been in that area for 25 years. If one looks now what is being said about what's being found in his possession, machetes. If you stay in that area for that long, you are going to have machetes due to the environmental realities you are faced with. Point number 2, he's been a hunter. So you are going to find ammunition, and it's not like having shopping centers nearby where you can go and buy your own ammunition. You will have to reload it yourselves. So even what is being stated in the media, what is being found in his possession, can be explained. And by no means am I saying he's completely innocent of certain other activities. But to now state that he is a ringleader of one of these cells just does not make sense with his presence for so long in specifically Cabo Delgado.
From the picture that you're painting, it would seem that this is, quote, a sinister arrest. Why would they do that, the government of Mozambique, that is?
One starts getting a feeling that the government is trying to pinpoint specific individuals. If one starts with going back to his arrest, I mean, already there the mystery starts. Because initially reports came that he was kidnapped. Later on it became clear he was never kidnapped, he was arrested from the start. His wife struggling to gain access, his wife not knowing where he is, only to find out that actually he's being held in prison. He was being held under guard. When he was in hospital being treated, there was military presence all the time around him. So in terms of gaining access to him is already a problem. And it is as if government is saying, but here we have ringleaders, we're going to arrest and prosecute them, and then the problem will be solved, is totally an illusion. It will be a symbolic message being sent to the outside world, to the companies currently with the gas exploration and investment taking place. And I think our government, yes, calling for a probe of a proper probe in terms of determining his possible involvement, I support that. But doing it in the proper context on a factual basis and not in terms of supporting certain agendas, no.
Right. Let's get factual. In terms of terrorism itself, what are some of the push factors, would you say, where people, what would attract someone to join a jihadist group or join IS?
In terms of IS or the Islamic State, as you refer to, or be it Al-Qaeda for that matter, is the fact in Africa that we are seeing structural conditions. High levels of unemployment. We are seeing people being frustrated with government and their policies. We are seeing communities being alienated from their governments and not trusting their governments. But then also, and I think in terms of the African context, well, one matter that remains underplayed is the matter of conviction to an extremist ideology. And I think that matter is very important. We've seen that with IS members in South Africa, that were willing to move to the then caliphate. I mean, we have seen clearly a conviction to their extremist ideology. So we cannot say if we do not have poverty and we address development, we are going to counter necessarily a level of conviction to such an ideology. It is just a propaganda messages from the Islamic State is running full steam ahead. And to think that we have facing a defeated group, as the President of America stated, is quite ludicrous. The Islamic State is simply moving back to another tactic and another type of attack that we are seeing. Yes, there might be a decrease in these attacks, but its message and finding home to certain individuals, we must not underplay.
In Southern Africa, just how prepared or anti-terror prepared are we? We've got endless protocols and policies in place, but are we comfortable that we can deal with any situation that may arise and not be reactionary?
I have reservations. I think because it's in Southern Africa, we're sitting with a unique context where we don't have an extremist jihadist culture, where we do find individuals supporting such extremist ideologies, minimum, not as we see that, for instance, like in the Middle East or even in Europe. We tend to be a bit more relaxed about the situation. And I think it's a mistake to define terrorism and to define the threat of extremism to mere violent acts or waiting for an incident to happen. I think there should be great awareness, great sensitivity, and by creating effective cooperation with all communities in terms of countering their messages in Southern Africa. And this is fundamental to the intelligence work that should be done by now. Are we really in a position to define the threat to Southern Africa in the context we find ourselves based on the resources they are having? That I have serious questions about.
Sure.
I find, and I also see, and I've been recently attended a conference where a person simply stated, but there is no threat of terrorism to South Africa. I mean, from a violent act point of view, some validity, but from a threat in terms of finding people prone to such messages, we cannot make statements like that, no.
Not at all. Jasmine, always a pleasure chatting to you. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Jasmine Opperman from the Terrorism Research and Analysis Consortium.